Joshua Oates was born on April 17th of 2008 in Columbus, Ohio, to parents Mark Oates and Latina Lee. Just before tragedy struck, Josh was an 11-year-old 6th grade student at Liberty Elementary School, where he was endeared by everyone who knew him. Josh was loving, humble, caring, and always willing to help others. He became a Christian at an early age before being baptized into the faith he chose. Josh's grandmother nicknamed him Prince because he was sweet and precious to her. The 11-year-old liked playing baseball and rehearsing music on his trombone, but most of all, Joshua Oates enjoyed being a big brother to his 2 younger siblings. Unfortunately, on St. Patrick's Day of 2020, just a month before his 12th birthday, his life was brutally stolen by someone who was supposed to protect it at all cost. I'm Mr. Black, and this is the disturbing truth. In March of 2020, Latina Maria Oates left her home with her 2 sons, 6-year-old Mark and 9-year-old Justin, telling them that they were going on a trip to New Orleans. Marie left without informing her partner Mark about her plans to go to Louisiana, but she did mention taking the kids for a hike. But after the hike, she and her 2 boys headed for New Orleans. On the way, they stopped and picked up Marie's oldest son, 11-year-old Joshua Oates. He'd been staying at a friend's house the night before. That friend would never see Joshua alive again. The mother's reason for the secret trip was never really clear, but some sources claim it was so Marie could reconnect with her ancestors from that area. Latina Maria Oates was convinced she was somehow related to Mary LaVue, a voodoo practitioner, herbalist, and midwife who was well known across New Orleans during the 19th century. Miss LaVue is often referred to as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. On March 14th, Oates is seen walking into the Hampton Inn in Laurel, Mississippi with her 3 sons. 3 days later, early in the morning of March 17th, she was spotted leaving the hotel, but this time with only 2 of her sons. The 3 of them got into a white Toyota Camry with Ohio plates and drove away. Later that day, around noon, a housekeeper went in to clean the place up for the next visitors. But what she found in that hotel room was far beyond the realms of any regular cleanup job she'd ever done. The horrified housekeeper hurried out of the room and called the police. Just a few days earlier, Marie Oates entered that clean hotel room and turned it into a nightmare, leaving behind a crime scene which left even seasoned detectives in a state of pure shock. The body of 11-year-old Joshua Oates was found in the bathroom of the room he'd been staying in over the weekend with his 2 brothers and his mother. An autopsy later revealed that Joshua had defensive wounds on his arms and left hand. In total, he had around 45 injuries, including 10 puncture wounds to the head that penetrated his skull. Why on earth would someone put an 11-year-old through such barbaric torture, and who was responsible for the evil? On the day the crime scene was discovered, New Orleans police issued an Amber Alert regarding Joshua's 2 younger brothers on behalf of a Mississippi police department. The hotel in which the 4 stayed helped investigators by providing details about which direction the white Camry went when it left. Then a day later, on March 18th, the police got a call that led them to the driveway of a house in New Orleans. Marie, Mark Jr., and Justin Oates were all outside in a car. The residents of the house had no clue who the woman or her kids were, but when Marie was arrested on spot and slapped with a charge of first-degree murder, I'd say they started figuring things out quite quickly. Mark and Justin were both found unharmed at least physically. God only knows how much what they witnessed will affect them later on in life. Child welfare services took care of the young brothers, while the police contacted family members in Ohio, who eventually picked Mark and Justin up to take them back home. They now reside with their grandmother. When the 2 boys were later interviewed, they were asked about their family lives. They explained that they'd been living with Marie and her husband Mark, but according to the boys, it didn't seem like there was much of a relationship between their mother and father. They were more like roommates that were living together but sleeping in different rooms. When the brothers were questioned about that night in the Hampton Inn, they didn't seem fully aware of what happened to their older brother Joshua. They'd witnessed Marie pounce on him while he was in bed before dragging him into the bathroom. From within the bathroom, they could hear him crying out, asking his mother why she was hurting him. A while later, they watched as Marie emerged from the bathroom, covered in blood, as something red seeped underneath the bathroom door. Marie told Mark and Justin they were not allowed to go in that bathroom. Whenever they needed to relieve themselves, she firmly instructed the boys do so in plastic bottles or simply do it on the floor. One of the investigators who witnessed the crime scene at that hotel said he'd never seen so much fecal matter, vomit, and urine. Those boys clearly went through hell. When the police entered the bathroom in room 319 at the Hampton Inn, they came across what looked like some kind of altar. There was also a bath full of water mixed with blood. The brutalized, lifeless body of Joshua Oates lay on the floor. He had a 5-pound metal bar driven 4 inches deep into the back of his skull. Nobody was prepared for the horror they found in that room on that fateful St. Patrick's Day. After the arrest, Marie Oates was questioned at the Jones County Adult Detention Center, where she described in horrific detail what happened. She claimed that she heard spirits telling her to kill Joshua that night because he was a demon and a threat to his younger brothers. So this monster of a mother told the police that she slipped her 11-year-old son some NyQuil, hoping he'd be fast asleep when she attacked him. Marie claims she didn't want to hurt him any more than she had to. But if you ask me, her whole story's just a pathetic excuse to try and negate responsibility. In my opinion, she's just crying crazy. Before the killing, Marie Oates went down to her car and smoked a cigarette before grabbing her backpack. Inside it was what she called an ancient dagger, but in reality it was just a metal bar. There was nothing ancient about it. When Marie went back up to the room, she filled the bath up with water. She then urinated in the toilet before wiping herself with a piece of paper. Bizarrely, she threw the paper in the tub too. According to Marie, peeing on the paper and throwing it into the bath was her way of blessing the bath water and turning it holy in preparation for the sick ritual she had in store for her son. After that, she attacked Joshua while he slept in bed and apparently tried plunging the metal bar into his chest to kill him right then and there, but she was unsuccessful. That, of course, woke Josh up, and that's when she dragged him into the bathroom and closed the door. As Latina Maria Oates continued to attack Joshua, it became clear that he wasn't going to just lay there and take it. As I mentioned before, Joshua Oates fought for his life against the hands of his own mother. Unfortunately, he was no match for her. Marie forced his head under the water in the tub until Joshua stopped resisting. She then pulled him out of the bath and put the piece of metal through the back of his head. The autopsy showed that the object was used on the little boy's head multiple times. Marie said she was possessed by voodoo spirits and that they made her kill her son. She also claimed Joshua had been possessed by evil spirits that turned him into a demon. According to the police, Marie Oates seemed convinced that this was a fact, but I'm not buying it. When the officer conducting Marie's interview stated that mothers are supposed to sacrifice themselves for their children, Marie quickly interrupted. She said she would have if the child was hers. For whatever reason, at the time of the murder, Marie claims she didn't think Joshua was her son. But personally, as a father, I think that's the biggest pile of shit I've ever heard. After the questioning, Marie made a phone call to her husband, Mark Sr. Mark said he was at a loss for words. Marie, on the other hand, simply asked for a change of socks and underwear. Where the hell was her remorse? Maybe there wasn't any. Marie waived extradition from New Orleans and was returned to Mississippi, where she was held at the Jones County Jail. The bond hearing for Latina Maria Oates was on the 19th of March in 2020. During the initial hearing, Oates admitted that there was a lot of violence in the hotel bathroom that night. She even tried pleading with the judge that she was not a threat to society or her other 2 sons. But the judge and everyone in that courtroom knew exactly what happened that night, and they weren't buying it. But Marie claimed she wasn't a bad or violent person. She said she loved her kids and that they were her life. She wanted bail, reasoning that when she was arrested, she didn't even try to run. In her mind, because she didn't flee from police when she was being arrested, that had to stand for something, right? During the hearing, Marie confirmed that she'd killed her oldest son and once again described exactly how she did it. Thankfully, bond was denied, meaning Marie had to stay in Jones County Adult Detention Center until Circuit Judge Dahl Williamson could take a closer look at her case. The defense stated that Latina Maria Oates had a history of mental illness, They said she'd been on several medications and therefore were requesting a mental evaluation for their client. When the judge heard Oates call herself a voodoo priestess for Marie Laveau and claim she was guided by voodoo spirits, he granted the request for a mental evaluation. And that's where things start to get even more sketchy. The doctor performing the evaluation was allegedly hired by the defendant's family rather than the court. If you ask me, this creates a little bit of a conflict of interest in the situation, but I have no legal background, so what do I know? Marie, her family, and her defense team all said that she had been interested in voodoo for a long time. They also claimed the mother had been having mental health problems for even longer. But other people close to Marie seemed certain that none of that was true. And to make matters even more complicated, it seems that Marie's mother works in the mental health field in Ohio. With this knowledge, rumors and speculation arose that she may have been coaching Marie on schizophrenia in order to pass the evaluation so she could plead insanity at the time of the crime. When Marie's calls, behavior, and body language at the beginning of the case are compared later on to her interactions in court, she seems to be slower and her mannerisms a little off. But was that real? Or was she faking it? That's certainly a good question. Thanks to mental evaluations, the pandemic, and the retiring of both the DA and the prosecutor mid-case, it took quite some time to convict her of the crime. But soon Marie's charge was changed from first-degree murder to capital murder by way of a grand jury. But then when Marie's attorney, Janine Pacific, found that out, she was forced to step down from defending Oates. She wasn't qualified to defend a capital murder case, so Latina was given another state-assigned attorney. Wanting to waste no more time, the judge stated that he would like to keep the already selected court date. So they did. Oates was assigned 2 state attorneys, Linderick Taylor and Cruz Gray. The strategy used by Taylor was to prove Latina Oates was criminally insane at the time of the crime and that she truly thought she was killing a demon rather than her son.
As we gather here today, it is essential to remember that the legal system recognizes the concept of insanity for a reason. It acknowledges there are instances where the mind grips us so overwhelmingly that we may not and cannot control our actions. That makes the reality that we perceive so distorted that we don't know what's real and what is not. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, this a principle of insanity. It's not an excuse, but a reason to understand mental health. And as you saw from the witness stand, the evidence that was presented before you, it painted a picture of a woman, a mom, who had become gripped in the jaws of a severe mental disorder called schizophrenia. You saw in the video, and you saw from testimony, and heard from testimony from the stand, when she was arrested in New Orleans and brought back to Laurel, you all witnessed severe mental illness firsthand, and how distorted the reality of a person that is so overwhelmed and gripped by severe mental disorder perceives reality. You saw from yourself how out of touch with this reality that we perceive she was.
Dr. Chris Lott and Robert Storer, forensic psychologists, backed that theory after assessing her mental state, and they came to the conclusion that she had indeed been acting insane at the time and was fully invested in her delusions about her son, Josh. They'd been working with Marie for quite a while. In fact, the last extension of her mental evaluation took 4 months to be completed. During that time, she actually did convince psychologists of her mental health issues. She told them that she started hearing voices in her head around January of 2020. She even claimed it was the voice of her dead grandmother who told her to reunite with her ex-partner Mark and get the boys together in one house. Marie took several unplanned trips to Chicago and Florida, and during one of those trips, she says she believes that someone put a hex on her. Later on, she claims that she began hearing the voice of Jesus and that he told her to go to where her roots are in Laurel, Mississippi. When she picked up Josh from his friend's house, she said she heard the same voice tell her that the people in that house are witches and they were turning her son into a demon. This alleged voice of Christ convinced her that she had to kill her 11-year-old in order to save her other 2 sons, which, while indeed very Old Testament, still not very Jesus of him. The doctors believed Marie to be displaying signs of severe delusions. One second she thought she was Cleopatra, then later she thought she was Mary Magdalene and married to Jesus. Hell, at one point she even thought she was the voodoo queen Marie Laveau herself. What an absolute mess. But prosecutor Katie Sumrall ripped the defense team's whole case apart at the trial. She said cases involving children are always personal because she too is a mom.
There's this time period where she's in jail with no meds and no counseling, and she's fine. The story gets more detailed and crazier sounding as it goes. When she first tells it, there's nothing about a rosary being upside down. That comes straight out of a horror movie. It gets more detailed and more crazy, and I had to wipe myself and throw it in the tub. I mean, come on. The truth is consistent. And again, I don't think I ever got a good explanation from either expert about if she's having command hallucinations and she has no choice in the matter. Why is she able to disobey them sometimes, but not others? After she's in jail, she writes letters, and you've heard that read to you. And she says, I know now that the voices aren't real, and I don't like to listen to them, so I'm not going to. So before she can disobey the voices, and after she can disobey the voices, it's only when she's killing her child that she has no choice. When the interviewer asks Justin, what happens in your family when somebody gets in trouble? How is discipline given? Well, Mom talks to us. What does Mom say when she disciplines you? I hate this family. That's what Mom says when she disciplines the kids. Maybe Mom wanted out, and she found her way. Mom left with no suitcases for either of the kids, none of them. Mom had paid rent 2 months in advance. Why would she do that? Maybe Mom had no intention of returning with any children. And she can choose when to obey the voices and when not to. I have to take the stake to the forest, and I have to bury it in the Native American land because it'll deactivate the bad energy. But I get there and there's nowhere to park. So we just left. She made a decision then not to obey the voices. But she had no way to disobey them. During however long it had to take to inflict more than 60 wounds to her 11-year-old, whose baby brothers can hear saying, Mom, why would you do this? I'm sorry.
When Katie cross-examined Mark, he painted a picture that Marie was very intelligent. She even had her own cleaning company. She'd also authored a manual for one of her relatives' daycare business. The publication even earned government approval. Marie Oates was not stupid. She was a capable woman who graduated from school a year early. But when Oates got back with Mark, he was forced to quit his job and look after Marie's cleaning company, while she just stayed at home, laid on the couch watching Netflix, and demanded that he become something more in life. Prosecutor Sumrall was convinced that Marie's actions were premeditated, and to be honest, it looks like they were. Firstly, why would she bring a metal bar in her backpack from Ohio to Laurel? Secondly, the day before murdering her son, she went to the dollar store and bought a pack of NyQuil, the same OTC she would later give to Josh before murdering him. Well, she said she gave the NyQuil to Josh, but that's not at all what happened. After Joshua's toxicology test came back with no sign of sleep medication in his system, it was revealed that Latina Maria Oates had actually given the NyQuil to Mark and Justin in hopes that the only witnesses would sleep through the whole ordeal, completely unaware of what was happening to their older brother in that bathroom. But the drugs didn't work. They probably just made it worse, because those 2 little boys witnessed their mother drag Joshua in there and they heard the whole thing. What an awful thing for them to have to remember. When Marie became aware of the Amber Alert issued for her other 2 sons, she quickly turned off her cell phone. But a statement Marie made when she was apprehended stood out. When she was being arrested, she told the police that she knew why they were there and that she didn't mean it, which changed everything. The cops opened up the back door to the police cruiser, gently pulled Marie out and back up to her feet, then undid the handcuffs, patted her on the back, and said, "We're sorry. We didn't realize you didn't mean it," and they let her go. Of course that's not what happened. Are you kidding? She was guilty as sin, and Marie Oates would have to face justice. Later on, the staff at Pine Belt Mental Health Care Resources expressed worries that Marie's mother, an Ohio mental health worker, was interfering with her treatment and could be coaching her for her legal defense. Psychologists Chris Lott and Robert Storer have performed more than 4,000 mental assessments between themselves over the course of their careers. Even they were forced to acknowledge that their findings in regard to Marie were wrong. On the 29th of September, 2023, Latina Maria Oates was pronounced fit to stand trial as a sane person. Her defense team still insisted that she should serve her time in a mental health facility, not a prison.
It's hard not to let the desire for revenge against a person who's killed a child overcome your reason. But that is what you have to do. And it will be hard. And there will be hard conversations in that jury room. It's hard for me to talk about right now. I have a little boy. But Mark Oates, he had a little boy too. And you heard what he said about Latina. You heard what his mother said about Latina and her relationship with the boys. When reference to the acts committed, could Latina distinguish between right and wrong? What this really comes down to is this. Based on the evidence, based on 3 years of evaluations and accumulation of documents, conversations and discussions, observation, do you believe that she saw a demon that night? Or do you believe that she wanted to murder her little boy? What do you believe? Has the state proven beyond a reasonable doubt? Is there one reasonable doubt left in your mind that, hey, maybe she wasn't sane? Maybe she was suffering from some kind of delusion. Just maybe, she didn't know she was killing Joshua that night. If that doubt exists in your mind, you must find Miss Oates not guilty by reason of insanity, hard as it may be for you to do. That's what you must do.
But Judge Williamson refused to sway on his decision and thankfully sentenced Marie to life in prison without the possibility of parole on the charge of capital murder. The other possible outcome was the death penalty, but prosecutors chose not to go that route. If they had gone that direction, Mark Jr. and Justin would have had to testify against their mother, and Katie Sumrall couldn't do that to those little boys. I don't blame her. Fair play to her. Those kids had already gone through the abyss, and their bitch of a mother wouldn't be getting out. Marie's husband Mark also testified during the trial. He described the months leading up to his son's murder. According to Mark, in January, Marie had become extremely religious. I mean, she had always believed in God, but never to that extent. Mark said when they got back together, things were just fine at the start, but one day when he went to the store, she called him and accused him of plotting to take the kids away from her. When she showed her his phone messages, it was as if she returned to reality, stating, "I must be going crazy." As Mark continued his testimony, he described a night when he had to call EMT to their home on February 17th of 2020. Marie was acting erratically and causing a scene. Mark had no clue how to calm her down, so he called Marie's mother because he didn't know what else to do. She told Mark to tell the EMT that Latina was a threat to herself and others, so they would take her away and hopefully get her some help. But when the medics came, apparently Mark left that part out. I'm not blaming him, but sometimes hindsight sheds unfortunate light. Other people close to Marie gave their opinions on her mental health. One of them was Mark's mother, or Marie's ex-mother-in-law, Latina Oates. Latina said she knew Marie long before Mark got involved with her. They even lived in the same neighborhood for a while. But Latina can't recall a single conversation where Marie would have brought up the subject of her mental health nor any of the other voodoo stuff. Although, she did mention that Marie was abused as a child by her mother. Latina thought her daughter-in-law probably did what she did just to get at her and Mark. She claimed Oates often used Joshua as a chess piece. She further claimed that when Josh was just 8 months old, Marie and Mark got into an argument. That's when Marie threatened to take Joshua away from Mark forever. Dabarina believes Marie likely would have killed her other 2 sons as well before fleeing to Mexico. And maybe she's right, but those just might be the words of a devastated grandmother looking for a reason. Who can blame her for thinking the worst in the wake of something unthinkable happening? The other person who spoke out about Marie was her ex-girlfriend. She too said Marie was very smart, intelligent, and quite a manipulative liar. Apparently Marie studied psychology and business management. Among other things, she even designed websites. When asked about their relationship, Marie's ex said it was a rough one. Oates had even called the police on her before while they were arguing. The ex-girlfriend also claimed that she'd been subjected to various forms of abuse at the hands of Marie. While most of it was verbal, there were times she swears Marie got physical, even going as far as to vandalize her car. She added, Marie always believed she was smarter than other people. Debbie Moss, on the other hand, Mark Oates' sister, described Marie as a loving mother and stated that she never expected any of this to happen. Debbie told a news site that a month prior to Joshua's death, Mark and Marie got back together. She added that in the beginning of 2020, Marie went to Chicago for some unknown reason. When Oates returned from the trip, she was somehow different. Debbie couldn't explain it any other way. The aftermath of this case is horrible, and it doesn't matter which way you look. Sure, the surviving kids were unharmed physically, but I'm damn sure what they went through that night at the Hampton Inn will stay with them forever. According to a few sources, Mark and Justin have gone through counseling to help them deal with this trauma, but no amount of counseling will give them their brother back. And don't forget, they lost a mother here too. I just hope they'll manage to stabilize over the years, and that they don't let their mother's actions get in the way of them creating a life they wish to live. Mark, Justin, if by chance you happen to be listening to this, your past does not define you. You have choices, and you make the bed you lay in. Your story and your future success can very well be the hero for other kids that are going through similar tragedies and need a way out. And once again, we've come across a case which might have been prevented if proper actions were taken. Mark's mother said that he wouldn't let anyone stand up to his wife, nor would he let anyone talk negatively about her, which I understand. But by the sound of it, Mark might have been a victim of abuse himself, thus leaving him in a tight spot. As for me, I'm not blaming anyone except Latina Maria Oates. She murdered her son. Voodoo, Cleopatra, Jesus, religion, whatever. I'm not blaming anyone except Latina Maria Oates. She murdered her son, and I believe it was only a matter of time before she would have killed the other 2. Latina Maria Oates, you made your monster, and there's no fixing it. May Joshua's final moments haunt your nightmares for the rest of your life. I'm Mr. Black, and this is the disturbing truth.